Another day of flooding in Annapolis. I'm John Doman.
New body camera footage showing a police officer shooting a suspect from the back seat of a moving vehicle.
A threat to shopping malls across Northern Virginia puts police on high alert. I'm Megan Cloherty.
WTOP at 8 o'clock.
This is CBS News on the Hour, sponsored by the Exogen Temporal Scanner.
I'm Stacey Lynn in Washington. The FDA has endorsed the Pfizer vaccine for younger kids. Acting FDA Commissioner Dr. Janet Woodcock says it was found to be safe and effective, and it's also necessary.
Tragically, COVID-19 was among the top 10 leading causes of death for children 5 to 11 years of age in the U.S.
The CDC will review the recommendation on Tuesday, and then CDC Director Dr. Rochelle Walensky will have the final say. Halloween is a go this year, but you should follow some simple guidance.
Keep your group sizes small. Everyone should wear a mask, and Halloween masks do not replace COVID masks.
And Professor Andrea Gennaro says to carry hand sanitizer while going door to door. CBS's Stephen Kaufman reports people were boozing it up a lot in the past year.
The number of liver transplants has tripled due to heavy alcohol consumption during the pandemic. That from a national university study.
Some of the months had about 60, 65, 70% more than what we would have expected.
University of Michigan study co-author Dr. Jessica Mellinger says pandemic alcohol use remains a concern.
While it's come down, it has not, however, come back down to pre-pandemic levels.
Heavy rain caused widespread flooding in parts of the East Coast. Some communities along the Chesapeake Bay got hit especially hard. WJZ-TV's Jessica Alberts in Baltimore County.
People are still on high alert.
The roads flood all the time here, and this is probably like one of the worst ones.
Water rose to levels not seen in decades.
Thanking God, I guess we have flood insurance.
Heightened security in Northern Virginia this weekend after what CBS's Linda Kenyon tells us are some credible threats to shopping malls.
The threats were reportedly made by the international terror group ISIS. While Fairfax County Police Chief Kevin Davis was not more specific, he did say this abundance of caution is necessary.
We're simply being proactive.
Expect to see more police presence at malls and other crowded areas. The UN humanitarian chief with a dire message about Afghanistan at the G20 summit in Rome.
Half of the children under 5 are at risk of acute malnutrition.
Martin Griffith says its economy is collapsing and there isn't enough food to eat. Australian researchers say an experimental therapy could help treat an aggressive form of pancreatic cancer.
Basically, chemotherapy is delayed while the hard walls of the tumour are directly targeted to reduce its stiffness, density and connective tissue to effectively weaken the cancer.
This doesn't only affect the main tumour, it also reduces the spread of the tumour.
Dr. Kendall Murphy from Australia's Garvan Institute, who says chemo is then applied. She says the spread of the cancer is reduced by up to 50%.
That's CBS's Scott Mayman reporting. This is CBS News.
If you're checking for fever, the leading sign of COVID-19, beware of dangerously inaccurate non-contact thermometers. Instead, learn about Exogen at Exogen.com.
It's 8:03 on Saturday, October 30th, 55 degrees, going up to the mid-60s today. Good morning, I'm John Aaron. The top local stories we're following this hour. The hope is that the worst of it is over in downtown Annapolis, where floodwaters started rising yesterday. The waters didn't make it all the way to Market House, and so any early risers who needed a cup of coffee were just fine.
It actually looks very dry. I'm surprised.
But walk with me down Dock Street, and it won't be long before your boots are soaked.
So I went out to Lowe's and purchased an extra pump.
I talked to Jay Mahaffey from the doorway of Storm Brothers Ice Cream.
Just trying to keep the water out. We have probably 4 or 5 pumps running.
Which he says helped, but at high tide he estimated about 8 inches of water got past the sandbags and into the doorway. He was here as a favor for his friend who owns the store. He says at high tide there were puddles all the way to the back.
We had to shut all the freezers in the customer side of the store down, so just so that we wouldn't get any electrical shorts or anything like that.
In Annapolis, John Doman, WTOP News. Meanwhile, an Annapolis landmark was damaged by those floodwaters.
Floods are nothing new to the Annapolis Maritime Museum and Park.
We are prone to flooding, and so we had our exhibits designed on wheels.
That's so they could be moved to higher ground. But after Friday and finding 6 inches of water in some portions of the building, Alice Estrada, president and CEO of the museum, called on photographer Jay Fleming to come and document the damage. Fleming is a photographer who's known for keeping his focus on the people and places of the Chesapeake Bay. He's also got photos on display at the museum.
I do hear from some people around Annapolis that they didn't used to see flooding this frequently.
Fleming says flooding is a reminder.
People should have an incredible amount of respect for the water.
Kate Ryan, WTOP News.
We now have police body camera footage of a violent incident that happened last week in Northwest D.C. The video shows officers confronting 35-year-old Natango Robinson, who was in an SUV on Kennedy Street. As Robinson drives off, an officer jumps into the back seat and orders him to stop his car.
Stop preaching! Stop preaching! Stop! Okay, stop! 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 Stop the car!
The officer then shot and injured Robinson after he refused to stop. You can see the video at WTOP.com. As you were hearing on CBS News, you'll likely notice more police around Northern Virginia this weekend as law enforcement reacts to a threat against shopping malls reportedly from ISIS. We get more now from WTOP's Megan Cloherty.
Fairfax County Police Chief Kevin Davis says regional intelligence partners became aware of this threat.
We received information concerning potential public safety impacts to malls and shopping centers across the region.
He did not describe the threat in detail, but says until it's corroborated, he'll increase officer presence around any areas where people gather, shop, recreate, and dine. Davis says normally he'll increase patrols around holidays, but Tuesday's election is heightening the response.
So it's a time where the Fairfax County Police Department is going to be hyper-vigilant regarding any and all public safety.
WTOP reached out to the FBI, which had no comment, but says it takes all potential threats to public safety seriously. Megan Cloherty, WTOP News.
Coming up, global leaders tackle some big issues today. We'll break it all down. It's 8:06.
It's football season, and the Podcast DC app is the one place to find your favorite local pigskin podcasts. Enjoy local pundits, personalities, and provocateurs debating DC's professional football team, regional college teams, and high school matchups, all on one local app. Earn exciting rewards just for listening and share the podcasts you love with your team instantly. With new programs being added every week, don't hesitate. Download Podcast DC now for free. Available in the App Store or Google Play. Podcast DC. Listen local.
I believe Virginia is the best place in America to raise a family or start a business or get an education. And it's our responsibility to make sure that we keep it that way. This is Terry McAuliffe. When I was governor, I had a simple rule. There are no Republican ideas or Democratic ideas. There are only good ideas. And I'm proud we work together, creating jobs, investing in education, and we move Virginia forward. But today, there are those who want to take us backwards. They're looking to cut money from public education and give it to private schools instead. They're proposing budgets that slash funding for local law enforcement. They want to make it harder to afford health care.
Addiction is a disease that impacts all of us. Whether you, your neighbor, friend, or family member is struggling, everyone feels the pain of addiction. Recovery Centers of America wants you to know that addiction treatment works and recovery is possible. Call 1-888-RECOVERY now for help for yourself or a loved one. Recovery Centers of America, Capital Region, and Bracebridge Hall have helped thousands of patients in the D.C., Maryland area start a better, healthier way of life through their evidence-based inpatient and outpatient treatment programs. The caring team of physicians and clinicians at RCA see their patients as so much more than their addiction and are deeply committed to providing expert care with heart. Recovery Centers of America knows that every day in active addiction is a day in isolation, which is why they admit new patients 24/7 year-round. Don't wait. Make the call that can change everything. Call 1-888-RECOVERY now. That's 1-888-RECOVERY.